Bro, Jay is one of my favorite collaborations.
For real?
Oh no, like I think we saw each other. Like Jay knows the 37 that can make a beat now. We're recording it now, and it's fun, and there's nothing to lose. We found the hook of Khatalina. It was in another song called JR. Yeah, so which I also produced.
Yes.
So at the bridge, he does Khatalin Najum. He repeats it and he does a thing. It was a thing that he was already doing. So I said, yo, remind me of that thing that you said, because obviously the language wasn't
Yes.
it was just words to me. It was a cadence, okay?
Now back to Rizzy. How did that collab happen? Where did you? Yeah.
Do you want the PR story? Do you want the real story?
No. Please.
I think it's one of the best things ever, man. Like, I've always known about Rhythm. I just didn't know how I would produce them. So like the one thing about Motif, they know how to brief, bro. It seemed like they needed to do it like I can.
It was in the opening sequence.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's all about money. You gotta get up for the money. You gotta wake up for the money. It's all about the money. You know? And then the second one was Afro Cafe. It was long, bro. It played for long. For
real?
For many years. The one with Ishmael, Afro Cafe.
King,
Yeah.
how have you been?
My man, I'm blessed. I'm good. You know, life is good. You know, like, I won't even lie. This year is a tough year for a lot of people, entrepreneurs. But I'm blessed. I'm good. I'm good. I've been wild. I mean, since the last time we spoke. The last time I saw you was 2 years ago in Eswatini.
Yes.
Yeah, at what was that? Bushfire.
Bushfire.
Yeah,
Hey,
so it was Bushfire.
I was going through live
Is
that
it?
weekend.
Really? How so?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not about me.
Yeah.
The last time I saw you in such a setup, obviously not an event.
Yeah.
It was Idols.
Probably
Where
the voice.
Where I thought, oh, he does this too.
Yeah.
Where you were coaching singers.
Got you. That's the voice, yeah.
It wasn't production,
Yes.
but obviously it's production.
Yes, live events, yeah.
Live events.
So that's one of my 3 hats that I wear, right? So my job, what I do for a living, I'm a music producer.
Okay.
The one that you know.
Yes.
Producing artists.
Yes.
The second job is music director.
Okay.
For live events or anything that needs music.
Sure.
And live and its production. So that's where, like, I think I fell in love. Like I started 10 years ago.
For real.
With Coke Studio South Africa.
Yes.
So I went in Coke Studio South Africa as a producer, and then the following year, I got appointed to be the music director for Coke Studio Africa.
What?
And then I went to go work in Kenya. Bro, like, biggest job of my life. You know, on that show, the one season, we dealt with 80 of the best talent in Africa.
No.
We're talking Tubaba, Mikasa, AKA was on that show. Like anyone you can think of, Yemi Alade, to a point where I actually was called into a session with Jadina.
Oof.
Like, just because of my position, like, oh, this guy may know like what to do in the studio. And then I got a call in the middle of the night, like proper Hollywood stuff, you know. So that's been my most consistent work.
For
you know,
real.
So shows like The Voice Afrique. I've done The Voice Afrique. I've gone to Ivory Coast to work on The Voice Afrique, the French speaking one. I've been to the one Nigeria. I've done like shows, Football of the Year in Lagos. The other one was in Abuja. I love it, bro. Like it combines everything that I love about music. You know, you've got the production, making the music or editing songs or editing new stuff to it, speaking to talent, making sure that, you know, it's going to be like a great spectacle on TV, and then, you know, arranging it for band, and then directing it, communicating that with like TV people. That's my favorite job.
Wow.
And then the third job, the third one, which I love, I love all of them. Film compositions.
Sure.
I score for film and TV, you know. So I compose for film and TV. The other word is scoring. Yeah.
This is crazy. So
Yeah.
don't you sometimes feel like, how do I get here? Like,
My guy, I'm blessed, bro. I'm absolutely blessed because it's I can't say how did I get there because there's so many turning points, right?
sure.
But the most consistent thing is that all of these things that I'm doing now is stuff that lived inside me. And I was like, I want to do that. And then I pretty much sacrifice everything to be that person that does that, you know. So if we're talking about scoring, there was a time in my life where it felt like work was getting lower on a different front, like on the producing front. So what I would do is log on to Coursera at night, or go to Berkeley online and get a course and learn how to score, learn how to orchestrate for you know, for string section or for like a 64-piece orchestra, and think about all that stuff. And then the one course I did was how to it was a very nerdy course. It was a course on conducting, how to conduct a rehearsal, you know, but like on a big scale. So small things like that. So when I say sacrifice whatever is happening in the moment for something else, it's like there's always a price to pay for changing your career or getting something else, you know. So, you know, most of the things that I've landed, I never felt like I deserved it at the time. I remember when I got appointed to work on Coke Studio Africa, I didn't feel like I think most of what I was doing before was producing songs, and a little bit of music directing, like getting on stage, doing stuff with Todi or doing stuff with JR, but like being groomed in a way. And then now I've got this massive opportunity where I'm gonna be working for like 19 weeks, 20 weeks back to back. I'm talking on the show like that, we're churning 5 performances per week. So that's about 10 to 15 songs that need to be produced, and then they need to be performed in that pressure. Like literally we're turning it upside down. So and then working with guys like Jason Derulo. I worked with Jason Derulo. I worked with Trey Songz on the show, like and everyone you can think of. So, but the preparation of that like made me shake so much, like to a point where I'm like, oh, okay, it's 2 weeks before I go to Kenya, and then I would like Google all kinds of music. I'm like, what is this? What are the rhythms of Kenya? What are the rhythms of Africa? How can I create like a template? You know, and I'd literally like Google Gaga and program as much as I can just to be ahead of the curve. So by the time I get there, I look like I know what I'm doing.
This is crazy. Now, born and raised where? Known as
the one thing that I was so nervous about
yes,
coming here, this particular place.
sure.
Right? Because I knew like the language is gonna be exposed.
Yes,
It's my lifelong story. I'll unpack it. So I'm from, my full name Mpho
sure.
Pulu.
Sharp.
My father is a Sotho man,
Sure.
Musotho. So his family are from Maseru,
Sharp.
the roots.
Sharp.
He was born in the Eastern Cape.
Sure.
So was his dad, my dad.
Okay.
My dad
Is
my
from-
dad's my grandfather married a Xhosa woman,
Okay.
and he moved from Maseru to the East London
Sharp.
side of life. So we grew up there. So my father married a Xhosa woman.
Sharp.
So I grew up in the Eastern Cape. Now where it's a soft point, the way it's a sore point, the reason I'm laughing is because all my lives, growing up in King Williamstown and going to school in King Williamstown,
Sure.
they never seen Mpho, you know. So, and my surname, like it's very rare. Like they in Xhosa they say Polo,
Sure.
Mpopolo.
Sure.
So when I introduce myself in the Eastern Cape, I say Mpopolo, right? So most of my growing up was, hey, this guy, you know?
So you and Casper are cousins because
No,
almost similar surname.
yeah, almost similar. His is as 1 O.
Oh.
I know it's 2 O's. I've got 1 O.
Yeah.
And then when I went to university, I went to school in Cape Town, UCT.
Sure.
So obviously now everyone is coming from different places. Now the Sutu guys or the Tswana guys are expecting me. So it was a mishmash mush. It's like, yo, no, what is this Mpo doesn't speak? Yeah, well, so and the reason why is because when we first met.
Yes, yes. I think backstage, what's that venue in Newtown?
Yo, baseline.
Baseline. Yo,
wow.
Yeah, man. Yo, Catalan is amazing. And then I go in, Setswana. And it's like, yo, bro, I am so confused. What are you saying? I'm like, what do you mean?
Hey, man.
How is this Setswana? How is this Setswana?
Listen. But thank goodness, the Motswako guys, they made me official. Okay, I was the 37 wa Motswako. They were like, "Aye, cool."
Did you hear the confusion? Are we shooting this
know.
episode for Third Element or for Motswako? And the room decided, no, give Motswako this guy.
Yeah. Word.
What?
Yeah, man.
So there's this thing of you starting off. Okay, and then you move past Eastern Cape. Where is it? Eastern Cape?
King Williamstown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You came to Joburg as an adult.
Yeah. So I left home when I was 17 to go study. I spent 5 years at UCT.
Studying what?
Engineering. Not sound engineering, like electronics.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's dope. And then I started messing around with music then.
Sharp.
I started music very early.
Sure.
I was 11, I learned how to play. So in high school I had a band, I was in church band, I was recording myself at home, I was selling beats, I had groups. Then matric happened, I finished my grade 8 piano, went to study something technical, a BSc.
Wait.
Yeah.
Grade 8 piano, let's break it down because I find out in the music terms, to the grades of piano,
they're not the same as.
Yes.
So grade 8 is like matric. It's the highest you can ever go.
Yes.
Before you go to performers licentiate.
What does that mean?
So performers licentiate is something that allows you to perform with an orchestra. It's almost like a certificate. You're like, yo. So if
you have that.
No, I've got a grade 8, the one before, which is also quite dope.
Yes.
So it's in a grade 8 is an equivalent of what COPA would give someone. They're like, okay, you got a degree now in performance. Yeah. No. Look, I went to a really cool school. My parents, thank God that when I showed talent, the first time I recorded myself, my parents found the cassette that I recorded and they were like, how did you do this? I explained, no, this is what I did with it. I recorded it. I took a tape deck, connected it to this other tape deck. I connected my keyboard. I recorded the first track, which is the drums. And then I replayed the drums, recorded it back in. While that's happening, I had the keyboard split, bass this side, keyboard this side, like piano, and then voice. I'd record myself. And I repeated that thing until I had a full cassette of songs. And I think I was like 12.
What?
And then my dad was like, I thought I was in trouble, bro, because you never were allowed to touch. Yeah, you know that system.
Yes.
Because I needed the quality to be like, so cassettes, the more you record over,
it loses quality.
It loses quality. So they were like, how did you do this? Because I was like, yo, I'm in trouble. They asked me, how did you do this exactly? So I explained the whole thing. My dad was like, what do you want to do? I was like, yo, I would love to study music. And they were like, cool, we're going to have a chat. And they had a meeting, my mom and him, and they were like, cool, so you're going to go to Dale College. Dale College, at the time, I think even now they have a good music program. So got in there to study. So piano, so out of all the subjects, so you can do maths, and then they offer music as a subject, which means there's someone dedicated that, so I was doing theory, history, oral, practical. So within my school program time, there were times where I don't go to live orientation, which is what they call it now. I'd be practicing piano. So it's very intense, bro. It's very intense. Like, and I was in choir, I played trumpet, I was in the band. So by the end of high school, you should have done the music theory. So guys differed. It was a good program. Guys were like proper opera singers if they wanted to be. I was like piano, and then my major was opera, and then I changed it because I had a problem with words. So it's like having to remember all those words. I was like, it's too stressful for me. So then I changed to symphony. Then I was just like literally studying different symphonies, and then I have to like explain that in history.
So it's by default that hip hop found you, right? Let me cook.
Okay. I'm gonna let you cook.
Because the way you studied, you should have been zero hip hop, just moved on to bigger, greater things outside of hip hop. No. In fact, what I think you should be now is the poster child for what a child should turn out after studying music, because parents freak out. We even had that conversation here as a crew.
Sure.
Would you take your child to a music school? 90% of these guys are like, nah.
Sure, got you. Yeah.
A film school, nah.
Yeah.
And they do the job.
Sure.
But because they know the stresses of this industry, they're like, nah.
Wow.
But there's this thing of taking the most popular guy. For instance, like a Casper. I don't know who's more popular now. Who's the most famous guy right now?
Hip-hop.
Well, even singing. So we will take a Brenda Fassie and say, parents will take a Brenda Fassie. Nah, look at how her life ended. But yours, I know it's not perfect, but it seems perfect. You went to school, you studied this thing, and here we are, you're doing...
You know, I love that thought. It's amazing. So I think the one thing, if I would be the guy who's put on a poster, the one thing that I'd say before you launch in, you're doing the theory, the practical, be great at performance, but be amazing at the business. So I'll tell you for sure, like for cheap, that I'll probably be way more successful than I am now if I had locked in my business, if I knew exactly what it takes, like exactly, at least a proper broad overview. Because most of the things that made life not so sweet was the lack of knowledge of the business, you know. Because I came in hot in the game, right? I came in like 2003. My first song was in 2003, smashed the charts, like obliterated to a point where I got a deal. It was like I had 5 deals on the table. And then I moved to Joburg. So I picked one, it felt strategic because there were artists, Ghetto Rough. I was like, I'm like, work with Zola. I was like, okay, great. And then when I moved here, I got exposed to so much of the industry, right? From producing, I was going to every studio you could think of, right? I was working at Cube. I was, upstairs was Tasso, downstairs was KB. So I'm literally watching them work the whole day, and then watching the artists coming in and out. And then Zola, Zola had a smash hit. So now I'm like literally seeing these people. And at some point I started hanging with Ish, Murafe, like I'm being in different studios. And then I was literally producing everything you think of. I was Murafe, I did Gumchef, so many records I was messing around with. Outside of that, Lance was always passing. So because they were publishers, right? They would have my first advert I did in 2004. No, first piece of music that landed on TV, which was The Apprentice South Africa.
No.
Yeah, so Tasso, whoever had the brief or whatever, and they were like, okay, let's double up. Let's call 37 in the middle of the night they fetch me, because I didn't have a car. found myself in the studio. They're like, oh, there's a show called The Apprentice. It needs to be about money or whatever, right? It's a Tokyo Sexwale thing. The next day, the producer's coming, so you need to pitch the music. So I'm like, I have to compose the whole night. I composed it, got Bongani in the studio. He sang it, the top line, mixed it. In the morning, Tami Ngubeni came. I pitched. I'm like, yo, da-da-da. And then Lance was like, yo, do not let her leave without a CD. So pitch what, if she says, yeah, I like it, burn that CD, brother. Burn that CD. Boom, made it. That was my first thing on TV. And
it was in the opening sequence.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's all about money. You gotta get up for the money. You gotta wake up for the money. It's all about money. You know? And then the second one was Afro Cafe. It was long, bro. It played for long. For
real?
For many years. The one with Ishmael, Afro Cafe. You know? So I got a taste, bro. I got a taste of, like, really
the bigger picture.
The bigger picture of the game. And then, like, literally the following year, I had 2 songs on the Tsotsi soundtrack.
Which song and which song?
The one was called Crazy. C-R-A-Z-Y.
With
Crazy.
Ishmael.
With Ishmael, which was the blueprint for Josie, for the Josie sound.
Sharp.
They call me crazy. Produced that. And then the other one was a song called All in the Name of Fun, which was a 37 mph original. So it was my own song because I was still being like a producer, DJ type vibe.
Sure.
Electronica. That song crossed over, and then it kind of appeared a lot in Europe on the podcast.
What?
Back in like 2005-06. So those 2 songs, and then because of those little moves, I attracted like a French producer, well, someone who was working A&R at EMI, and then that got me to work, like be signed overseas as an artist. So it's like I got a taste, you know, quite early in the game. So, but the point I was trying to get to is that, like, I would have probably like smashed all of these things. I would be like Black Coffee rich now. By 2010, if I'd known what I know now,
yes.
If I know what I know now, so I would advise any parent, if there's like any kind of interest for their children to be in the music game, like they're doing their thing right now, right? But if they want to consider, just take them to ASC or even take them here to COPA to do a music business course. Because that's one, like, if you have your hat and knowing exactly what you're doing, there's no guesswork, you know, because you don't want the guesswork. It's the same thing with producing music, or the same thing about performing. Like, when you create a good performer or a good producer, you give them as many challenges to be good at producing so that they don't guess, like, is this good? It's like, you know what makes it good, you know? So the same thing about, if you want to make good bank and good money, you need to be good at, like, you know, the techniques and how to move around business-like, you know?
Damn. Ghetto Rough.
Yeah.
How did you get to the Josie album?
Wow. So I was kind of in the space, right? So the second year of me being at Ghetto Rough, I was literally camping. I was living at the studio.
Sure.
Right. So I was busy. I was so busy. So Bongs came on the picture in 2004. Yeah, the same year I came. He was the hit boy. Bongs didn't know how to install computer, right? I was the gadget guy. I was coming from UCT, bruh. And I had the software. So I would sit there, his computer would crash, and then I'm installing.
Yeah.
So
the IT guy now.
Yeah. So listen, guys, I've done everything. I didn't come here just for free. You know?
Yes.
So I was literally, because I was there in the computer, so they called me Gadget Man, right? So I was hanging out with them. I became the familiar guy. Right? They were cool. We're cool with each other, but like the fact that I was always there to support them technically, kind of, it's like, oh, he's a cool guy, you know. So then There was Shimane ECT.
I remember
Right.
Shimane, double
Yeah.
disc with Shimane.
Yeah, so they were busy with that and da da da. At some point, Lance was like, "Yo, 37, we need to do something that's like, it should sound like Shimane ECT. It's crunk, but it needs to have roots here." He explains the backstory of POC and whatnot and all that. Then eventually he shows up at my spot with like a stack, like a mountain of CDs from CD Warehouse, like all the Maskandi vibes, everything you can think of, like 50 CDs. He's like, sample, right? So cool, I sample, start chopping. Then we made the CRAZY song, Crazy. That was the first blueprint. It was like, yo, okay, cool, this is what it sounds like. And then it's like, then there was an example of like, okay, cool, make a thing like this. Then we started cooking the Josie album. It was a long thing until a point. That story is amazing, actually. They were recording a lot of the songs, but you know, Josie, the fellas, we like to party.
I know,
Right.
I know.
So yeah, life was good, right?
Yeah.
There was the big body Benz, right?
The maroon one.
Yeah, the big the big body Benz, and then there was the BMW, the Bongs one.
Yes.
It was a very brand new series 3.
Seven for the Fiza.
No, it was a 3 something. It was a
Okay.
3 something. So we were distracted. Josie was like, Johannesburg was busy, and we're not finishing the album. So Lance was like, "Yo, come on." So he ships us off to a farm in Cullinan.
Kalina in Pretoria.
I didn't even know where Cullinan was. we left in such a hurry, like in the middle of the. Well, we knew we were going. We packed all the computers, and then we all. So I was in Ish's car. He had a C something,
Yes.
the hatchback one.
Yes. The
So-
silver one.
Yeah, the silver one. So I was in that car. I think Les was also in that car. Boom, all the way to Pretoria to be able to finish. It was great. The best cultural experience of my life. There was Mabi Tobajani, played percussion. He was there. So it was just like a music camp for days, all for us just to finish the album. So it was like day in, day out music, bro. And then they were filming the the EPKs and stuff.
Yes.
So it gave us time to like lock in, you know.
Lance is a genius then.
Yeah, Lance is a genius. I mean, if you asked him this question now, he would tell you the same. He was like, "Yo, those guys were never gonna finish that album." And he was like, "Off they go." And then we went, we bonded. Hey, we bonded. Like I think we're never the same after. I changed from there. The trip. Yeah.
How does JR find you after this?
In 2005, I think, 5 or 6, can't remember. It's blurry now. I was studying at TUT,
Okay.
right? I was doing some course, engineering still. And then one of the guys who was in my class was a guy named K2.
Ciao.
And K2 he was like, "Yo, your vibe is different." I'm like, "I'm actually a producer, bro." He's like, "Where do you work?" "Now I'm at Get Her Off." Like, "Who you producing?" "Now I'm doing Ish's album."
So you went to Scala.
Yeah.
While
My guy, yes.
this is crazy.
So
I mean, you've made it.
guys, I hadn't made it. That doesn't
But
make
industry
sense.
standard wise.
My guy. So this guy, he was like, this guy is talking nonsense, right? So he's like, "I know a guy. There's a duo that I know in Pretoria. They know each other, you know, street vibes. And this guy is JR and Gaj."
Ciao.
So I'm like, okay, whatever. So he says, "I want to organize a meeting." So I'm like, "Sure, let's do it, whatever." Cool. He calls a meeting. We meet by McDonald's in Pretoria. So the campus was like off, like all the way to, Mamelodi.
Sure.
Then we went back to town. We had this meeting. I meet this JR and this guy. There's a producer. I think there was a manager. I think at the time it was Puppet, a guy called Puppet.
I know Puppet, yes.
And then these 2 guys. So I was like, cool, let's do the studio. They come to my studio and then they rap. Okay, cool. We messed around. We did quite a few demos. My computer still has them. So I get these 2 demos, but the one guy wasn't as strong as Jay, right? Gaj. He was dope, but like he wasn't.
Jay has presence.
Yeah. So, and then there was a time I was mising them. I was like, I didn't know how to navigate that conversation to say, yo, man. And then Jay is like, yo, why are you not calling us? And I explained the thing. So I was like, let's try and do you guys separately. And then me and Jay started doing more songs. It took some time, bro, like from like 2005, 6. Yeah, 2005 and 6, we literally locked in. We're like doing songs. That's the story there is that songs, like a big star, you cook them. It just doesn't have an open overnight. And the song will find you when you're actually doing the thing. So we did many demos, right? And then eventually, there were some songs that I was like, yeah, I feel like this is the thing. So I tried to pitch. They were like, no, it sounds too much like this guy. It's too much like Jabba. It's too much like Morafa. I'm like, guys, this is different. This is another guy. This is, So eventually, 2007, we found luck, bro. Like, we found the hook of Khatalina. It was in another song called JR. Yeah, so which I also produced.
Yes.
So at the bridge, he does Khatalin Najum. He repeats it and he does a thing. It was a thing that he was already doing. So I said, yo, remind me of that thing that you said, because obviously the language wasn't
yes.
it was just words to me. It was a cadence, okay? So he says, okay. I'm like, oh, flip. There was one day we're actually recording, we're doing Old Time Feeling. We just finished recording Old Time Feeling. I sampled Kaifas.
Yes.
Give me that all. So then we just finished that song, and I was like, I still want to do one more song before we wrap this up. And then I was like, what does that thing go? He's like, yo, Khata. I was like, yes. The moment he said, I heard the beat in my head, bro. I ran to the studio. So we're at my place, at my apartment. JR came in. Oh, we laced, bro. It was the quickest lace ever.
For real?
Yeah, and then, but the song wasn't done because we still hadn't had Toady yet.
Okay.
We had 2 verses.
Okay.
But he mentioned Toady and then he just goes, Khatalina, Joe, Khatalina. Then I phoned Toady. I was like, bro, can you please help us? Would you mind? Toady was like, let's get it. And then a fun fact about, like, I think I love the creation of music is that I can look back and be like, yo, if it was on to my devices, the song would have been okay, right? But like, because there was a good voice and another good producer, like the way that we did, like there was one part that Toady contributed in the song where it goes, 37, Skadlala man, what are you doing? That was all him. Like he was like, yo, why did you go back to the chorus? Can we not do something else different? And then I was like, I never thought of that, and I did it. And then hence the structure of the song is insane. And I'm like, Toady knows this. It's a story that like we talk about, like, yo, my man, shout out for that. And yeah, that's how JR came about, man. It was just from my time at TUT. Intersections or what?
This is a crazy story. I remember hearing the song Go YFM for the first time. I think it was only...
Oh my God, that's a miracle on its own, that thing.
Yeah.
Bro, like the events of that song, ne?
Sure.
We finished this song. The night we finished it, before Toady, my friends from UCT had a party in Paulshof.
Sharp.
So I get invited to the party. We get in the car. We go to Paulshof. The one thing I learned about industry and songs, and I knew for a fact, DJ Clear told me this, never release a song without testing it. So I'm like, I've got this song, it's in my pocket, right? It's on a disc. Go to the party. I'm like, yeah, everyone's, we're having a good time. They're a hip hop crowd, but they're more the American hip hop.
Sharp.
So I'm like, and they know me, I make beats, right? So I'm like, yo, you want to hear this? Yeah, sure, let's play it. Play it in there. Wow. They're like, this is dope. I play it again. They're like, play it again and again and again and again. And also because some of them, because they come from Joburg, they knew the context. They can hear what's happening.
Yes.
So I'm like, sharp. We recorded with Todi. It's done now. Then Jabba had I think Meftown Heights. No, it was a party that was doing every Friday.
Every Wednesday.
It was a Wednesday.
Yes. YBA Wednesdays.
Yeah, I begged him, bro. Can you let this guy go on? He's like, yeah, we'll see, bro. We'll see. Okay, sharp. There was one particular one. He says, yes. My guy. Yo, brother, me and Jay, we practiced. Like, we sat there. I was like, this is what we're going to do. And then we go here. Bro, we practiced that thing.
And you guys killed it. I was there.
We practiced, bro. Then, once we did that, we heard now about 60s, right? That like, let's go to 60s now, right? So, we're hustling. We bought the music business book, me and Jay. We're studying it. We're like, yo, we're doing this. We're launching in, bro. We're going to find a deal for you. Sharp. Then we go. We don't have a deal. We get in the car. Broke ass ninjas, okay? Fill up the car. It's a bunch of boys, Mpo Benti.
Yes.
We all drive to Meftown. We don't have a place to stay even. We had nothing, bro. We had nothing, right? We had T-shirts. They printed these T-shirts, Khatalin. We go there. The strategy, we went to Jabba's thing. It was in a hall, like a town hall, just outside of Meftown.
Oh, yeah. There's no Meftown. No, Ghana was that venue. Racetrack.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we start there.
Yes.
We're there. Everyone is there.
Yes.
Everybody was there. We're like, we play the song, and we're like, yo, they're vibing with the song, okay? Now we're like, let's go to Meftown now. We're going to the 60s thing. We're gonna, whatever needs to happen, we'll crash where we need to. Whatever, man. We're here this weekend. We went from party to party to party. Whether it's a house party or an official party, if it's a parking lot, we're playing the song. We played the song, we did the dance, bro. Like, we did I feel like we paid the dues, and the gods of music and the gods of Meftown and everything that was supposed to make the stars align, made it align. Come back to Joburg on Monday, right? We're still buzzing from this song. Like, yes, we got something. I phone Lee. Lee is a friend of mine, really good friend of mine. Yes. I'm like, Lee, okay, we are around because we're doing meetings. We're trying to get the deal. Cool. She's like, no, pull up. Just a casual. No, we're not doing an interview. We're just pulling up. We show up at the studio. We're chatting offline. It's her and AK.
Sharp.
We're just chatting. They're like, what you got? So I had the CD. It had like my demo, an album I was working on. They're skipping. Just off air, right? Then they get to Khatalina. Yo, guy.
What is this?
Yeah, see, bro. There's some shuffling. Before you know it, they're playing the whole thing in entirety. So while it's playing something, okay, don't you guys have to link or, because we've been playing this thing off air. In my head, I'm thinking we're off air. Hi, my guy, it's on air.
It's on air.
And then I'd see DJ Monde coming, like running through the glass. And then I see DJ C Live. It's like, yo, they're like, whoa. Is this song playlisted? Brother, quickest playlisting I've ever seen. C Live definitely put it on the top whatever, top 10.
Top 10,
yeah.
Hot 99.
Hot 99. Quickest everything. We got a deal. We got that song mixed properly now. Because my mix wasn't good enough. We got it mixed, bro. Like, we took it to the studio, we took it to CSR, and boom, everything happened. Then things were in motion. Like, if I'm saying things moved real quick.
There was this date now.
Yeah, this is around like December 2007. By 2008, that thing was the hottest thing ever. JR was getting car sponsorships. Yes, he bro, like, yo, God is good. Yeah.
The next single from the project, I mean, the album dropped and
March 2000.
Yeah, what was the name of the album?
The Main Event.
The Main Event.
Yeah.
Did you produce Hot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Ta. Yo, what a stressful song. Stressful.
Why was it stressful?
Bro, no, stressful on a personal front. So the day the song was supposed to record it, Jerry phones me, yo, can we? I was like, sure, no problem, let's do a song. I'm coming to the studio, to your house, with TP and a couple of people. I'm like, yo, I don't like people, man, you know? So, but TP, sure.
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
like, yo, okay, what am I gonna
Who are
cook?
these other niggas?
Like, yes, I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna cook,
Yes.
right? I cool, sure. It's like the guys are coming, it's like early morning.
Sharp,
So I don't have a beat, I have nothing.
sharp.
Quickly, I make that groove. I was like, I just wanna, you know, go. By the time they arrived, the chord progression was happening. We recorded it. So he smashes verse 1, JR does verse 1, and then I had to take a personal call, and I heard the worst news ever, right? Well, not like worst, like in a bad way. It was just like a shorty not doing a good thing in your personal life. So I was upset. I was like, I was like, yes, I'm busy recording such a sexy song and you're telling me this. So I go back inside. So I think the backstory, like that day, it was back in my drinking days.
Sure,
There was a crate. They brought so much beer.
sure.
I remember that song for like that. By the end of that recording, there was so much beer in my lounge. Right, like bottles, but like when we finished it, it was done. Like there was no adding of anything. It was just done. It was another gift. I do tell you, bro. Like with songs, the songs will find you. Just keep making the music. Make the whack demos. Make them whack. Get them out of your system. Get them out of your system. Because when you're in the flow, bro, Jay is one of my favorite collaborations.
For real.
Oh no, like I think we saw each other. Like Jay knows the 37 that can make a beat now. We're recording it now and it's fun and there's nothing to lose. That's like, for me, that's what you want in any. I think collaborations have now changed. That's why like maybe there's a backseat from producing. It's everything is so structured. You know, it's like, can you come to whatever? There's a camp, is words they use now. Let's do a camp. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do that.
You did it with Joe's.
Yeah, listen, I did so many camps. I've had some really dope camps, and they just never feel the same. You know, you're like, now they're gonna be smoking, and there's, you know, it's never gonna. It's not like.
It's not about the music.
Yeah, you know, and the camp is not like organic. It's like there's a beat that's been sitting, which is dope. I love it for them. But like, I think there's something special when the thing has been cooked. It's been cooked on the spot,
Yes,
and you don't
especially
feel
the vibe.
and you don't feel the pressure. It's just
Yes.
happening. Boom. If it takes 10 hours, it's fine. We're having a good time. At the end of it, because now we are old, we've got children. Like, so I'm like,
Why must I leave my kids to
yeah, I
be
was
in the
like, yeah, I was like, when I started song, and you're like, yeah, bro. I'm like, yes. Like I have to drop off my kid at 2 now, bro. 8 o'clock. I'm like, I don't think I want to be here. So it's taking a different shape. So if we're gonna do a camp, fly me somewhere, bro. Fly me somewhere, bro. So like, take me out of this thing. Like, I don't want to be like, dad, like, you're not gonna get 37 when there's dad around. You know what I mean? Like, take me far.
Make me forget about my life right now.
Yeah, bro. Like, my kid must be far,
Sure.
enjoying life, and I know she's secure there.
Yes.
But like, then you can get presents from me.
Wow.
You understand? So it's
And
like,
my groot man is-
and the other thing, you know, when I was thinking about this interview, I was like, yo, I wanna like, one of the questions I thought you were gonna ask is like, why don't you produce so much anymore? It's like a known fact. I love to produce.
Sharp.
Right? My favorite thing on earth is to be behind a computer screen,
Sharp.
messing around with sounds.
Sharp.
The thing that maybe it's like least spoken about, I hate recording. I cannot stand it, bro. I love the creation. Like, bro, I must really like you for me to like sit and press record.
So, you're a music snob, sharp.
Not a music snob, bro. It's tough, that thing. You're gonna sit there and listen to like a guy punching in 10,000 times.
Hey, Jay, stop punching.
Bro, ask
Stop punching.
ask Murafe, bro.
Sure.
They know, like, I'm known to, I used to kick them out of the studio, bro.
But you're not ready. Go.
No, not even that. I'm like, I need to focus. Because I'm like, yo, there's 3 of you guys. Then you guys want to hype each other up. I'm like, we wrote the song now. I'm like, out. I want Cooley on his own. And then when he's done, I want, so that we can focus and nail his thing. Do his ad-libs and da-da-da. And then the next one, then the next one.
Out.
Yo, that thing was stressful, bruh. Like, I don't know how I made it. Like, bro, all the songs I've recorded, I'm like, yo, I hate this with all my life. like literally, like I can't stand it. Like, but because I am like, I think there's a part of me is like impatient with it, right? And it's not a rare thing. I remember working with Reason when we did Audio 3D.
I was gonna go there on my next question.
Reason,
Yeah.
Reason, bro. Like, we shared the same thing, right? Reason hates to be in the studio when a beat's being made, right? I hate being in the studio when someone's recording, unless the verse is written. And I'm just there to be like, yo, your tone is off here, turn it up here, da-da-da-da, Then I can produce on that level. But if you're writing and punching in,
Get me out of here.
you have to pay me a lot of money. A lot of money, bro. Pay for the pain, bro. For the pain, bro.
Now back to Reason. How did that collab happen? Where did you? Yeah.
Do you want the PR story? Do you want the real story?
No. Please.
I think it's one of the best things ever, man. Like, I've always known about Reason. I just didn't know how I would produce him. I met him. He was the guy. He was like killing it on the streets.
Sure.
He tried a couple of times, but I think the presentation, I just didn't understand how I would help him or how I would produce him. So a couple of times we spoke, we want to record a song. And then the one time, 2011, I was at the Summers. I saw him, he was with Bradley, Bionic, and Stogie T, Tumi at the time. And they were with Reason. So Reason had done that pitch again. Yo, can you produce me? I was like, yeah, sharp, no problem. Then I see them later walking. And then Bradley hits me on some, there's this artist I want you to produce, this guy called Reason. I'm like, oh, he's working with you guys. So like structure is my thing, right?
Yes.
And then they were like, oh, okay. So I'm like, sharp, I'm going to France. I'll see you when I come back. Stop now, please. Let's stop. So, no, but I was legit going on a trip.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying,
listen,
you're busy versus,
I'm signed to a French label, okay? then I come back, we have a meeting, and then they're like, they explain the story. I was like, okay, it sounds amazing. I was like, I'll bring my iPod. So literally, it's like, had my iPod. Then I had the folder in there, beat one. Wow, they like it. Next one. They kept using this word, Audio 3. That's very Audio 3D. I was like, okay, whatever. They picked 5 beats from that meeting. Then sent them the actual beats. And then a month later, we're in studio. Best setup ever, bro. It was, Instro was doing the engineering.
Hey,
he's doing the punching in. So he's the one person record, boy. So now, like that production is happening is that I just show up. I just have the stems.
Yes.
I just show up there with the hard drive and the stems, and I sit there and I listen. I'm like, that's a dope take. And then we all agree, yeah, that's a dope take. I'm like, yeah, if we change this, sharp, cool, can I have that stem? Put on my thing, and I'll do something. I'm like, here it is. They're like, oh, that was beautiful. I enjoyed that. Like, so, from those 5 tracks, it kind of increased a bit more. There was like the basis songs. I feel like those are like the songs that kind of form the sonic palette of the album. And then there was talk about they needed an identity song and they needed a whatever. There was a title for it, and then they started putting me versus Ivy League, right? So I'd hear Tlako Bone, produced by Ivy League, and then they're like, "Yo, look what these guys did. What you got, you know?" And then I started pitching the best beats, not like just like album songs now.
Sure.
Like, yo, let me turn it up a little bit more.
Sure.
And then, but I had the one song that I never even associated that song with that project.
Sharp.
But when they described what they needed, I was like, this is
I
the
know
song.
a perfect song.
Yeah, so like the one thing about Motif, they know how to brief, bro. I love a good brief. Like if you explain what you need, I'll go through my thousands of songs and I'm like, there's one. But it seemed like they needed to do it like I can. So I had to do it like I can. A reason will always say that the first drums on the song sounded like a Willow Smith song. It was very like,
For real.
doom.
I like my hair.
Yeah. It was very like doom, very pop. Very pop. Like I wrote the chorus, right?
For real.
Yeah, I wrote the chorus, and then so the song had the chorus already, but he hated the drums. I was like, I'm cool with that.
Well, like, who's singing on the chorus though?
Charmaine,
Oh.
a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Charmaine was an artist. Well, she's still an artist, but an artist that I was constantly working with, developing, and like one of our sessions we did Do It Like I Can.
And
So-
I don't know why I thought it was a sample.
No, it was Charmaine.
What?
It was a person, a real person. Written.
No, you know, do it. You know the song.
It's so unfortunate. Really? Everybody thinks it's a sample.
Yeah.
It's that good, hey. I should.
The girl in the video was just acting.
Oh, really? Yeah. I should write more often then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually amazing, man.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Because that song for me, I mean, I know Reason as a backpacker.
yeah.
Rap, let's go, right?
That's the thing I couldn't understand. Yeah, for me, I was like, what am I gonna do now with like, how am I gonna produce the back?
And when he was on that beat,
Mm-hmm.
he became somebody else.
Mm.
And I think for the first time, Kuka, that type of a rapper on 5FM.
Yeah, bro. Like that's the power of a good team. Like when that collaboration happened, and when that album was released in that time, the Motif guys are so locked in, bro. So in terms of like that story, that song where it needed to be, they treated it with the reverence of knowing that, yo, this is gonna be a song. Every single song on the album, to be honest, had that kind of magnifying glass. A lot of people think that a song is just a one take and is done. That if maybe in my head or anyone's head thought that that's all it took was just one take, we knew, like I know with that song it was recorded 3 times. The first time the 2 verses were they were cool, right? 3rd verse like changed so many times, right? 3 times. And the version that we ended up, that we know, the one that verse 3 it goes, it was all a dream. I used to read Hype magazine, right? That verse happened after summer, so we had finished in December. I go away on holiday and I come back, the song is different. I'm like, wow, okay. Oh, flip, now we got something. It's complete. That comes from good A&Ring. Like I remember Stogie, bro. Stogie, shout out to him, bro. He, apparently the story was that they were at a party, a New Year's Eve party with somewhere in the Joburg, and a DJ smashed Biggie. He dropped a Biggie song, and that verse came on, and they were like, oh snap, we need to do something that feels like this.
Let's localize it.
Exactly. And then so for that one verse, so that's amount of detail that went into that song. And then they came back. So and everything around it, like when the concept was audio 3D, right? One of the things that attracted me to working on that project was that Bradley said, cool, you produce the album and we need you to go perform it also. I was like, great, I'd love that. So which means I get to music direct, and we can all collaborate and music direct an element. So at the time I was very big on my MPC and my little synthesizer.
Yes.
So it was not only just the recorded stuff, it was how we're gonna perform it.
Wow.
That made it like amazing. So the concept of audio 3D was the rapper, with an affected vocal. Like Instro was busy like messing around with Reason's vocal live, right? Adding sound effects. Then the other dimension was Akio doing the scratching, like everything's live, right? Doing the juggling and the beat juggling, dropping the beats. And then there's moments in the song. So whatever track edit, I would always make an arrangement which opens up for me to like perform live. So because I produced a bulk of the songs on the album, I had all the samples. They're my things, right? Or even the other songs I didn't produce, I would load the samples in there and perform them live on the MPC.
What?
So that was like another element. So that, the way they positioned us, like, so it was already like, okay, this is gonna work. Or we worked it, bro. Like we rehearsed for months to give a product, like to all of us to be a unit. And I remember, you know, like it was one of my favorite like projects I ever worked on. We like do Red Bull gigs, would do gigs on the rooftop of Joburg, and in Skyroom Live. Actually. Skyroom Live even got us to go perform in LA.
For real.
Brother, because of like everything just worked nicely. Like that's a good team. Like where they locked in, they have like a business mind and they know what to do. They commercialize the music and actually get it to the places. Because you can have a good song, bro, but if your presentation is not dope, it's not gonna end up in the spaces. It will probably, you know, in whatever corner. You want your product to just go and be pristine. That for me, that was like one of the best things that I've ever seen. Like with songs, we did not Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. We did Cape Town Jazz Fest, bro. Like I think we performed twice with as the outfit.
I'm trying to remember. There's one Standard. Was it Standard Bank? Cape Town Jazz. Did you guys do Cape Town Jazz?
Yeah, we did twice, bro.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's one Cape Town Jazz that I did, and you guys were there.
Yeah.
And for me, I always felt like it's so amazing when hip hop is in these spaces.
Yeah.
As scary as it is,
Yeah.
this is not the target market or target audience, but we've made it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as what the 5FM when I listened to the song or heard the song on 5FM.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, this guy's really cooked for us.
Sure, yeah, man. Yo, bro, like it was like it's also like that song went number one. We had 2 number ones from that album. That I produced.
Sure.
We had A Lot on My Mind, which I also wrote. As the world keeps turning,
Yeah.
I think I'm going crazy. So I wrote that one also, and like, but the sonics of it, and you know that they took a risk on a song like that, and even a dude like I Can, like opened up, because I think people really didn't know how pop radio really worked, and that's the sound that actually got us to like penetrate, you know, because like, you know, at the time 2007 rap was different from 2011 2012 rap, and I think there, like, you know, we're starting to like turn on and understand what's needed, or like produce sounds that were like dope enough to be like, wow, that sounds attractive, that can compete with a Drake record on radio. Like if you play this one, okay, yeah, that's flashy enough for us, you know.
Your life sounds like a movie, man.
Life is good, bro. I you know, I mean, I'm so happy to be reflecting this on even on this day. It just like takes me. I don't even think about this stuff, bro. Like I
You
don't
do
even,
that, man. Keep it moving.
that's the one I forget, bro. I forget. Like once it's done, because when I'm in the moment, I really do it, you know, and then something else will catch my attention. So I never get time to like reflect and think and be like, wow, that was such a dope time. I don't. I'm worried about, I'm like, I gotta take my kid to school, bro. Shout out Simpi.
I can relate so much with the things that you're saying, because sometimes Colette Labetse, now we need 1, 2, 3 at this stage. And I'll be thinking, how much time will this take from my life? Right? What do I have to explain to my kids why I'm not available? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, nah,
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But with you, it seems like a lot of things, especially after going to school, go Pitori. Most of the things sound like they were calculated. I mean, there's a point where someone will decide, or you know what, I'm in. I mean, Ghetto Rough is in. But when are you going further? You producing outside. You're the only guy that, let me think before I finish my thought. Actually, you're one of the guys, except for Tasso, who went to Ghetto Rough and not complain.
Yeah, listen, it's a state of mind, bro. You gotta, everything, you have to look at it with an eye that is beautiful. Like, you can't look at everything with like a weird eye, because you stand a chance of shaping your entire world with that weird eye. So basically what I'm saying is there's always a blessing in something, right? The time at Ghetto Rough was tough for me financially, but it was the good training ground I needed to be the person I am now, you know? So it's good to like look at it, even in the time where it sucked. I'm like, no. Like, whoever's trying to tune me like, yo, that sucks there, bro. I'm like, well, show me how many like adverts have you scored? How many briefs did they give you? How many did you land? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of spaces are we playing in? I think like, you know, I'm glad that you actually point out Tasso, because I know Tasso before he was at Ghetto Rough. I knew Tasso in Cape Town when he was at Mama Dance.
Sure.
He's the guy that actually even made a recommendation. He's like, yo, this 37 guy, the demo is sitting on the desk. It's hot. And they're like, go with this guy. So when I met him again here in Joburg, a year later, it was like, yo, we know what we're doing. And even his moves, if you look at how he's moved, Tasso produced one of the biggest Kwaito stars on earth, right? Zola. Patiently. And not only, while that's happening, Tasso is like a crazy serial multitasker. He's busy recording while he's doing Zola. There's Proverb coming in, he's doing solid songs with Proverb. Then he's at the time he was developing Tux. Then he's also developing Morafe, my guy. And then Jabba, my guy. So it's like the positioning. So basically like how the mindset was, the stuff that me and Tasso would talk about in the studio is that nothing is handed to you. If it's handed to you, then you're not doing enough. You have to go for it. Like any producer in South Africa that's worth mentioning, they went for it. They produced something out of nothing. That's what a producer is. It's like you've got a computer that the label has bought you with your advance, and they gave you a room to work in. The rest is up to you, my guy.
Ish.
They can say like, they can give you an artist, they've got a budget for you, do more, you know, like do more with that, do something with it. Like, I knew, like when I'll give you an example, when we're doing Reason, the assignment was simple, produce these 5 beats that already they're sitting there. So I'm like, I see an opportunity here. So, and I was like, yo, I got every single studio, my MPC was there. Just as a mental reminder, like, oh, Konje, he can be dope on this thing. It wasn't even a popular thing, the MPC, but I was like, I see myself playing this thing. And I had a goal in mind. I always have many goals in my mind. I'm like, the challenge was I needed to be a sponsored artist, right, by Akai, right? And I'd already hit them up. And they were like, well, show us, if you can show us a bunch of albums that you've produced with this, that are on iTunes. At the time, it was like, yo, show us links and da da da. It was a long thing. It took me 3 years to be endorsed by Akai, right? And so now I'm like, I'm in a thing that looks like that. At the time, I was still using the 2000 XL, bro, the MPC 2000 XL. So I'm here making beats. I made sure that it's product, you can see it. By the time the album was done, bro, like we toured it, and there's videos, and I was recording videos, I was posting videos with that product, and then they're like, okay, go and fetch like Cape Town, they sent it to me. The MPC, the one I use now, the 2500, yeah. So everything, like if I'm painting the scenario clearly, the assignment was just be in the studio and record this album with the beats that you've already made. And I was like, well, I made these beats with the MPC on purpose so that I can do more stuff with the MPC. Maybe I can land a #1 song on the radio. But even if I don't, I'm still doing it and I'm getting good at it. And then I get to perform on stage. I get to make a name for myself outside of the studio and be cool and wear shades and like, because I did it, bro. Like, yo, skipani.com has got the best pictures on me.
Sure.
Like, I got the 37 shades, I had the gloves, boy. Yo,
I remember the glove.
I was cool, guys. Yo, I was cool, guys.
I remember that love. Wow, man. Look, I think we need a part 2 because
Cool.
we haven't even scratched the surface, because I remember you even did the RJ Benjamin.
Yeah.
Because you were always with RJ Benjamin. And for me, he's part of the people that I know where this man can produce.
RJ.
Yeah. And compose and make sure arrange all these things that are technical. And he can read music and he can, RJ Kitangju, you work with that guy.
Yeah, RJ got me my first song, bro. Like I skipped through the unbeautiful parts. In the first 6 months of me in Joburg at Get Rough, I'm signed. I'm seeing all the artists in the house, they're coming in, handing demos, they're not coming back to me. One day, in my depression, I made these beats, bro. The one day I was like, okay, I need to change my formula. So I started changing how I make beats. The one day, I'm sitting and I was playing beats and then RJ comes in. I just met him briefly before. He comes in, I was like, you wanna hear something? I play him the beat. He's like, ooh, this is nice. Who's this for? I'm like, you can have it if you want it. Burn it, boom, he takes it. Comes back 2 weeks later, he's got a song, Cry. My guy. Like that
song.
Yo, my guy. Whew, pew. That I did Cry on that album. I did Cry and I did Play Around with Ish. Everything changed. Like the same guys were walking through the studio and not picking my beats. They were like, oh, what you got? Can you give us the Can you give us that? I was like, sure, I'll give you that. So RJ, man, like, he's always been a good brother of mine. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you're working on right now? What do we have to look out for before we close?
Brother, I'm working on so many things. I'm busy messing around with a musical idea. I don't know if it will see the light of day, but I have a feeling it could. It's a project called Psalm 51. Clean heart. So like Psalm 51 says, create in me a clean heart and renew a steadfast spirit within me. So it's a I want to use the word like it's a spiritual project. No, it's where I'm at currently. Well, in this season, the last 3 years of my life, pretty much. I've just been like trying to write from a place which is free of pain, where I'm just leaning on God and saying, God, this is where I'm at. An honest project. So obviously the messaging is a bit about God and just dance. I'm kind of working on a project where I don't need to have an artist to perform it. So it's just songs, you know what I mean? So I need the artist to come and sing it, but I don't need them to be able to get it out there. So I just need, so I've been working on that. It's a long thing. I've been working, I probably got like 50 songs. So I'm hitting up my DJ friends to help me make it doper, like the high-end DJ guys.
Sure.
So some of them are saying, okay, Sharp, come to my studio. I'm like, I'll give you points if I need to. That's what I've been working on. And then I've got
high-end Black Coffee, guys. But
yeah,
let's go.
Hey, in Jesus' name. So I've been working on a platform for musicians. Right now, I can't say much about it. And then I'm always trying to write some music for film and TV. And then obviously, I'm always trying to be a better music director for live TV events and stuff. I think, music directing, besides conducting and doing band, for me, it's about communicating a message. For instance, if you were to have a wedding, a second one, you know, or like a lifetime achievement,
Sure.
which I think you deserve, right? And
Oh,
you-
Sam, I take that.
yeah, and you needed for a thing to be communicated about you. I would know exactly how to make an event for you.
Wow.
You know, like from the curation of the artist, what's important to you, you know, like what instruments to have and what order for them to perform it in, so that it says a message without someone going on the mic like, okay guys, we wanna. I would literally just curate that whole entire thing so that whoever's listening and they're enjoying, whether they sipped or whatever, but when they finish, they're like, wow, what a great guy. You understand? So what I do, so as a music director, I'm literally just telling a story by using different songs, different mechanisms, producing it and making it, saying something, connecting a message, you know, to...
You pitch very well. If you are selling, I was gonna buy. But
I'm always selling, brother. You can find it on 37mfish.com even. Whatever I'm selling.
So give us 3 shows that you
Sure.
directed musically, so that the viewer should see how
Sure.
claiming, because
Sure.
the
Well,
list is long, man.
Yo,
That's
bro.
why I read
Okay.
3. Okay, maybe 5.
Okay, sure. The last 3 Metro FM awards.
Okay.
I didn't do the one this year. I did Summer Awards, DSTV Mzansi Viewers Choice Awards.
Damn.
I did all of them. The Afro Pop.
All of them?
Yes, I did all of the DMVCAs. I did Afro Pop Nation, The Voice South Africa, The Voice Afrique, quite a few.
You did?
But like public ones, the very first one I ever did was the Hansa Pilsner Festival of Legends.
I love The
Which
Voice, by the way. I just
Yeah.
have to like.
Thank you.
I followed this show every time it plays.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
That guy.
Yo, it's-
Because it looks painful on how you should take random people, make them.
It's amazing, bro. It's the most amazing process ever. You walk away knowing everyone's name, their story, and knowing their voice. Like, I've made so many lifelong friendships because of that show. Like, Zoe posted me the other day. I was like, wow, thanks, Zoe.
Wow.
Because she, on her season, it was season 1, and she was one of the contestants.
And it looks like, sorry, I'm going to forget this thought. It looks
Yeah.
like the budget there is insane.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah,
You can
yeah.
continue.
No, the budget say, come on, think about it. You're shooting for months, guys. For
Sure.
months, like it's a big machine.
So,
And I love it for me. Like I love that environment. It's like if you want to be a musician, it's the closest thing we have to a 9 to 5. Like the guys that do the idols, like Kurt and them, right? It's like they can work for 6 months, bro. Which means the keyboardists, the band are employed, bro. Voice coaches are employed for 6 months. That's what we fight for, actually.
Sure.
So for me, when I'm thinking of pitching a show or pitching to be part of it, I think more than what I can bring to the table, but it's more like, yo, if I'm on, other guys are on for like some time, you know. That's what we want. That's the closest we actually have to like a day job. In America, like if you look at like the most high-end shows, it's either you're touring with like Justin Bieber, that you know that's your day job, unless you screw it up, you're set, right? Or you want to work on a show like Idols, US, right? That's a proper year contract. Like you are working, you know, you're earning your check, and the reason why you went to music school, you know. Or you strike it big and you work for an orchestra, or you work for Netflix, or you work for Disney, and that's your day job. So when I think of music directing, I think in that space
High
of like,
level, yeah.
it's very high level. It's beautiful what you're doing, and the main thing is like you're telling a beautiful musical story, and then what you do as a good music director is that you consider all of the good relationships you've had, like all the good music players, and you think, oh, what does this one bring to the table, Gonji? It's like, oh, this one, he knows how to do Neo so well, so he's gonna be booked for that, or he's a good general musician. So like, for me, it's a thing of connections forever. Like I think of the beautiful friendships you're gonna form with musicians, and the great relationships you form with the TV guys, with guys that I know more TV guys than musicians now. You know, it's like, not because of the nature of the work that we've been doing. Like you meet producers, you meet camera guys, you meet like sound guys, and they become your homies because we're fighting the same thing. And it's always a dope thing when it's a music show. It's if there's stuff that has to do with music. I want to be there. I want to be in the room. I want to be like, cause I want to fight for music. You know, music is worth fighting for. You know, and it's a beautiful story when you can bring others to be part of the action. And we can tell stories, we can laugh. You know, like none of the shows that I've mentioned all of them have a story. You know, like the guys that I've done metros with, I sometimes switch up bands and stuff. Like we'll do a gig here and then we'll do a gig here. But like we have stories. I'm like, yo guys, it was tricky that night where like it was running over. Sometimes we fight, you know, but we resolve it. But at the same time, like I can call them up and be like, gents, the groups are never dismantled. They're sitting there, right? And if I know
the next job.
Yeah, when the next job happens, I send a message, gents, wait. Contract
signed.
Let's go, you know? And more, even more than that, like some of them we sip coffee at our homes. You know, like I've got crazy relationships. One guy I like to work with, Lungelo Ngobo. He plays keys. He's amazing, brilliant producer, brilliant musician. I will call him like, bro, can you teach me how to play like you? Yes, bro. Like I'm not that dope. I'm dope, but like I can be doper. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the ceiling it's open, bro. It's like I want to be doper and doper. Like there's guys like, you know, when I think of guys that play drums, League, I'm like, yo, Leagues, yo, let's hang out. So I know what he knows. I'm like, I just want to be around you because you're dope. You make good music. You know what I mean? It's a never-ending story. Like music is the one place. I'm sure other careers have that we constantly have the opportunity to create good memories. You know, like the guys that we met 20 years ago, Todi, Murafe, KGism, right? We're still friends. Like I can call KG, I'm like, yo, can you come to my spot? Let's hang out, let's do something. Because of music, because we've been through the trenches. We've done either a song before, or we found ourselves in an uncomfortable situation, or our car something happened on tour, but there's always a story, and then we always want to, okay, we've got a reference point. And the biggest reference point is that we connect because we're music practitioners. We make music. There's a thing that like we know what it takes to make a song. Even the guys that are coming in, like the new guys, it's like we are telling the same story. Therefore, we want to connect. Like, yo, who are you, man? You know, take off your shades. Let's connect.
Yo, man, I'm glad. In fact, I love the fact that you're always willing to learn. In fact, when I think, what else can? But through you, I can see when I doesn't stop. Thank you so much. And I wanted to ask you, do you ever receive your flowers? But because I know, with you, it seems like it's not really needed because
listen, man, I love flowers. You know, whenever I can if I get the flowers, I just send them all the way to heaven. Say, God, thank you. To all the glory to God, man. Like all of it is because of the gift that He gave me. And I would be nowhere without God. You know, I'd be somewhere, but like I'm in dope places because of God.
Wow.
You know, so whenever the flowers happen, I receive them and I acknowledge them. And I just give the glory to God.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ladies and gents, 37 MPH.
Thank you, man.
Yo, before we wrap, I cannot remember 37 AK for what? Please remind us.
37 MPH stands for I'm a spirit, I live in a body, and I have a soul. 7 days a week. My job, my only job, even besides making music, is to make sure that I'm aware that I'm a spirit person. My spirit is connected to God, right? And it's the chief, it's the boss. It's the boss of me, right? And I live in this body. This body is just a temple that I train and I do triathlons in. And I have a soul. So whenever things are tough, I have to always remember like, yo, your body's going through it. You're not sick. Your body's sick. Or like your mind is sick. And then that's it. 7 days a week. and then MPH is MP, Mpo.
What a dope name.
Yeah,
Ladies and gents,
yeah.
it's a rap.